I'm Aubrey, and welcome back to Stars and Bars, where we analyze your favorite musical artists' astrological charts and interpret how their astrology plays out in their music, lyrics, and career. If you're new here and that sounds interesting to you, feel free to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any videos. I put them out every 2 weeks on Monday, and tell me in the comments who you want to learn about next. Our subject today is someone of whom I have been a fan for many years, and he has gone through some of the most dramatic public character development that I can really think of. We've seen him eat a cockroach, get arrested for inciting a riot, pull pranks and more in a sketch comedy series, throw a hell of a yearly carnival, design shoes with Converse, followed by creating his own fashion line. And just this year, we saw him win a Grammy for Best Rap Album. Today, of course, we will be talking about Tyler, the Creator. Here is Tyler's chart. He is a Pisces Sun, Scorpio Moon, Leo Rising. In addition to his sun, he also has Mercury in Pisces. He has Venus in Aries and Mars in Gemini. He has a decent spread of elements in his personal planets. He has 2 water, 2 fire, and 1 air, but no earth until we get to the outer planets. A chart lacking in earth in the personal planets can instill a sense of unbalancedness or instability or ungroundedness. And I would say that that does play out in the themes of some of his music. In addition, he has his sun and moon in water signs. His sun, again, is in Pisces, and his moon is in Scorpio. And his sun and Mercury form a grand trine with Chiron and Pluto. A grand trine is when 3 or more planets that are 120 degrees away from each other, approximately, form a triangle in the chart. Because of the way the zodiac wheel is constructed, a grand trine will always be in one element. Tyler's is in water. He has Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio placements that connect there, and those are all water signs. A grand trine of any kind can show confidence and self-assuredness, as well as optimism and good luck, and a water grand trine specifically will highlight the native's sentimentality and desire to reflect. And without Earth in his personal planets to balance out all of these water placements, that Venus in Aries, the grand trine, the native can come off pretty emotionally driven. They may not make as many decisions based on logic as they do based on emotion, and they may struggle to control or see past their feelings. That Aries Venus also makes a whole lot of sense to me. Venus is the planet of love, and Aries is a very aggressive fire sign. And Tyler's lyrics have many a time depicted him as an aggressive lover or even quick to anger with regard to romance. So those are the first glance things that I see when looking at Tyler, the Creator's chart. We have the lack of Earth in the personal planets, which can show emotional ungroundedness. We have the grand water trine that can show self-assuredness, and the fact that it's water shines some sentimentality and desire to reflect on Tyler's chart. And finally, the Aries Venus aggressiveness with love. So those are the things that stand out that I can definitely say off the top of my head are related to Tyler's lyrics. But there are also some placements I want to talk about before we get onto the lyrics that talk more about his career. One of these is his 11th house Mars in Gemini. Mars is the planet of aggression as well as energy output. People spend their energy in a way that is shown by their Mars sign, and you can see it in action the most in the house that the Mars is in. By that logic, Tyler spends his energy in a Gemini-like way in the 11th house area of his life. And the 11th house is the house of friends. Gemini is somewhat of a restless energy that is curious, loves to learn, and is very communicative and often even whimsical. This certainly reflects Tyler's work style and how he carries himself. He spreads his boundless energy across many different talents and interests, as well as genres of music. Some of the ways that he has spread his energy have included, of course, music, but also TV and fashion. And within music, he raps, he sings, he produces his music. Oftentimes, he creates the beats. He always really comes off very energetic, very goofy, and these are very Gemini ways to come off, I would say. He never takes himself too seriously, and he's always being carried on a new wave of interest that adds to his ever-growing catalog of talents. That last part is very apparent in the TV show that he had with Vice called Nuts and Bolts, where his curiosity leads him to learn how many different things work or are made, including stop-motion film, go-karts, and furniture. And furthermore, Tyler's Mars in Gemini is located in the house of friends, the 11th house. This suggests very accurately that Tyler spends a lot of time with and cares greatly for his friends. This is incredibly clear in his career. His career saw its beginnings in the alternative rap collective Odd Future, featuring Tyler and many of his friends, including Taco, Jasper, Earl Sweatshirt, and Frank Ocean. They also had a sketch comedy series called Loiter Squad. Odd Future has been inactive largely as a group for a while now, but Tyler still shows time and time again that his friends are very important to him and that he wants to give them opportunities, as well as just make art with them because that's what he likes to do. Some of the people that we see him a lot with in the media are A$AP Rocky and Jaden Smith these days, as well as a lot of the old friends from Odd Future as well. Ultimately, Tyler spreads his energy across many different platforms and genres of music and spends lots of time with his friends, including with regard to his career. And these are all things I would certainly expect from a performer with Mars in Gemini in the 11th house. Another thing I find interesting in Tyler's chart is that he has Jupiter in Leo in the 12th house. Leo is a very creative sign that loves to be the center of attention, and the 12th house is often referred to as the house of undoing or self-undoing. So Jupiter shows us where people find good fortune, how they can manifest good fortune in their lives based on their predetermined skills in their birth chart. Jupiter being in Leo shows that Tyler is able to find success by being the center of attention, which makes a lot of sense, I would say. He's been the center of attention for many things over the course of his career, some of them being controversy, and more recently, a lot of them just being his impact and the many different things that he does. Also, Jupiter being in the 12th house shows me that he can find success by broadcasting his self-undoing. And I describe self-undoing as the process of breaking yourself down in order to build yourself back up again. This often happens around or directly after something traumatic or something that really shakes your world up happens to you. So Tyler finds his success through being the center of attention and through his self-undoing, and I put those two together to say that he finds success through broadcasting his self-undoing, and that is super, super, super apparent, especially in the first 3 albums that he released, Bastard, Goblin, and Wolf, which we will talk more about that for sure very soon. Finally, as you may know if you've been here before, I really like to look at our subject's midheaven to get an idea for his career situation. And Tyler has a Taurus midheaven. People with this placement are persistent and hands-on in their work. Tyler, due to the controversial lyrical content of his earlier albums, has often been the subject of criticism, but continued to push himself and perfect his craft until he went all the way from being very harshly criticized to winning a Grammy. This feels just very unbothered to me, and I think of Taurus as a very unbothered sign. The archetype is pretty calm overall, and he has shown us time and time again that he doesn't really give a shit what you think about him, and his most important thing is just to make his art. Tyler is definitely very hands-on, as we discussed earlier. He is a part of every aspect of his art coming out, from the production, engineering, the vocals, both singing and rapping, the cover art, the visuals, and all of the writing. He also has a history of demanding creative freedom in his fashion line as well as in his work with Converse. Now, while Tyler does appear on the Collective Odd Future tapes, I won't be discussing those for the sake of brevity and for the sake of simplicity. I think that we can make some pretty good calls from just his solo album, so that's all that we'll be talking about today. So let's start back at the beginning of our list with Emotional Ungroundedness. Tyler, the Creator's debut album, Bastard, from 2009, starts a 3-album trilogy wherein Tyler, the Creator, has interactions with his counselor, Dr. TC, who is voiced by Tyler and is also considered to be one of his alter egos. Alter egos are something we've talked about here before. You may or may not have watched the Halsey video, but I will link it here if that interests you, if you're both a Tyler, the Creator, and Halsey fan at the same time. Also, if you are, you're my people. Halsey also has alter egos, or at least one, and they both have important Leo placements. Tyler's being, again, his rising, and Halsey's being her midheaven. And that does lead me to wonder what placements other rappers or artists that have alter egos may have. So if that sounds like an interesting off the main line type of video, let me know if you want to watch that. Anyways, this therapy theme bodes well for my conversation about emotional ungroundedness. You don't have to be, of course, emotionally unstable to go to therapy. I certainly recommend it if you think you have to, whether or not you are considered emotionally unstable. But the conversations that Tyler has with his therapist do lead me to believe that there's a little bit of a lack of grounding there. On the opening track of the album, which has the same name as the album, Tyler and the audience meet Dr. TC, his fictional psychiatrist. He says, "I cut my wrists and play piano because I'm so depressed," very frankly expressing his moodiness and mental illness. He then goes on to describe being suicidal and creating and talking to imaginary friends. He very deliberately comes off unstable through this entire track. On the outro to the following track, 7, Tyler says, "As you can probably tell from listening to this record, I was probably angry, probably on my period," describing mood swings severe enough that he would unleash a diss track like the one that preceded that outro. The rest of Bastard is mostly character songs that aren't necessarily meant to be Tyler. So moving on to Tyler's second album, Goblin, we continue the saga with Dr. TC. We are given some more insight on his emotional wounds and emotional ungroundedness. And we are also better acquainted with Wolf Haley and Tron Cat, 2 more of Tyler's alter egos, both of whom are evil. On She, Tyler tells the story of a man who is in love with a woman, but he lacks the courage to ask her on a date traditionally, so instead he stalks her and looks into her bedroom at night. Eventually he does get up the courage, and at that point he essentially feels like he is owed her romantic affection. And he says, "I finally got the courage to ask you on a date, so just say yes, let the future fall into place." However, throughout the song, Tyler does call the woman in question names and threatens her, saying things like, "You'll be down to earth quicker if you diss me tonight," and 8 is the bullets if you say no after all this, and I just couldn't take it, you're so motherfucking gorgeous. Going back and forth between lust and affection and anger and violence. Obviously, this is far from healthy or wholesome, and it is likely a large degree, if not 100% fictional, but it does play to the theme of emotional instability that we're discussing. In A Nightmare, Tyler says, "Love, I don't get none. That's why I'm so hostile to the kids that get some." Further referencing acting out as a result of emotional and love-starvedness. He also says, "Jasper said, if I drink and get drunk enough, I won't feel the feelings I be feeling when I'm sobered up. Then, don't look at me, I'm 6'5" and about to fucking cry." Then later in the outro, he confides in Dr. TC about what appears to be an imaginary friend of his that tells him to do very bad things, and that voice is named Tron Cat. There is a song after Nightmare called Tron Cat that goes a little bit more into some of the horrible things that he has planted in his head by this alter ego. I don't really recommend listening to it unless you're sure that you can handle it. I wouldn't even look up the lyrics unless you're positive that you are not faint of heart, because a lot of the things that he says in the song are far from family friendly, as we call it here on YouTube. These two songs give us a different kind of look at Tyler's emotional instability, where we really see the things that are planted in his head by these alter egos. We get a look at just how scary things are inside Tyler's mind, just how ungrounded he is. On Goblin's final track, Golden, Tyler says, "Ending it is all I fucking think about. That's the shit I think about, all alone, bawling till my motherfucking eyes bleed." Then later loses his cool on Dr. TC, his psychiatrist, until he is tranquilized by security. Then finds out Dr. TC and all his friends are all in his head. The third and final album in the Therapy trilogy is 2013's Wolf, wherein we are introduced to more alter egos: Salem, Wolf Haley's love interest, and Samuel, a drug dealer who is dating Salem. The album follows their love triangle as it unfolds. IFHY follows Tyler's thoughts as Samuel after he finds out his girlfriend Salem went on a date with Wolf. He reflects on his feelings for Salem and admits his strong feelings for her cause him to get jealous and angry when he feels their relationship is threatened. He says, "Cellular convos getting left in the wrong because I get so fucking mad when you don't write back. And also, if you even consider leaving, I'll lose a couple screws. In due time, I'll stop breathing." The chorus also says, "I fucking hate you, but I love you. I'm not good at keeping my emotions bubbled," bringing more attention to his mood swings. On the next track, Pigs, we learn about the bullying that made Sam the way he is, as well as his plans to get violent revenge. He says, "I know better than to show my face around them, but the day I do, it'll be everywhere. When I share these feelings, finally they gon' fucking care." As well as, "Recently, them assholes been fucking with me in class, so I'm gonna keep these motherfuckers there and make sure they pass." And some other lines that sound a lot like a school shooting. Now, these first three albums are definitely Tyler's darkest works. The themes and messages are pretty controversial and messed up, and they really give us a feel for the darkness of Tyler's inner world. And that is how alter egos differ from characters. Alter egos have a sort of assumed connection to the writer or to the main ego, whereas characters don't necessarily have to have that. And that dark inner world that Tyler introduces us to on these first three albums really speaks to his Scorpio moon, a placement known for its depth and darkness, among some other water placements that we've talked about. The next album in Tyler's discography is 2015's Cherry Bomb. Cherry Bomb is definitely his happiest album, with many upbeat tracks. It best represents Tyler's Leo rising, Venus in Aries, and Gemini Mars, more so than his more emotional placements. He shows Leo rising confidence while taking on an Aries Gemini loud, chaotic, hype approach to most of the feel of the album. Venus, along with love, is also the planet of art, and Mars, as we discussed earlier, can handle aggression, but can handle all energy output. So it makes a lot of sense that this hype, chaotic language is one that he is also able to speak in addition to the dark one that we've seen on his previous albums. Cherry Bomb, because of its theme, doesn't really touch a whole lot on the chaos inside of Tyler's mind. So we're not going to really talk about this one anymore for this portion, but we will get back to it for some other categories. Following Cherry Bomb, we have 2017's Flower Boy. This album, in some ways, is one of Tyler's most genuine albums to date. It more candidly discusses his sexuality than any album before it. It also covers relationships and fame. And I see Tyler, Venus and Aries directness with love and some of his Scorpio moon secluded inner world on this album much more than other placements. But there are a few examples of emotional ungroundedness on this album, the first of which is from the opening track, aptly named Forward. On this track, Tyler starts the process of being extremely candid and introspective and honest that he carries through the rest of this album. He says, "Shout out to all the girls I led on, trying their hardest to keep my head on straight," which both implies that he's used women to keep his mental health in check, but also that he's used them to conceal his true sexual preference. Much later in the album, Glitter describes Tyler's romantic feelings toward his love interest, on whom he seems to depend for his sanity, similar to the last song we talked about, Forward. He says, "Got the burner, got the heat like weight, got the shit, it's all up on that hip. I'll use it on myself the day you dip," suggesting that he would shoot himself if his lover left. Because this album does touch less on the chaos inside Tyler's mind, these are really the only examples we have of emotional ungroundedness on this album. But again, we will be back for it to describe some other things that we are going to talk about. And we have finally made it to the front of Tyler's, the creator's discography. The last album we have to talk about is, of course, 2019's Igor. This album is about the process of entering and then exiting a romantic relationship on which Tyler appears to be very fixated. His sentimental Pisces Sun and Mercury and romantically aggressive Aries Venus come off a lot in this album. On I Think, Tyler directly references his emotional imbalance, in this case due to romance, saying, "I'm off balance, I need some fixin', I'm your puppet, you are Jim Henson." This is another example of Tyler being off balance emotionally and mentally. And later on Puppet, he once again refers to himself as his lover's puppet in the chorus. And in the verses, he says things like, "I can't maneuver without you next to me," and "I do not have self-control. I'm starting to wonder, is this my free will or yours?" Now that we've discussed some examples of Tyler's earth-deficient emotional imbalance, we can move on to our next placement, his water grand trine. To refresh our memories, a grand trine instills confidence in the native, and when it's in water signs, it adds to their sentimentality and desire to reflect. Most of the Bastard Goblin Wolf trilogy takes place when Tyler is in a bad place, wherein he doesn't feel the best about himself or his life, but he does show off some of these grand trine traits in these albums still. On Odd Toddlers from Bastard, he says, "Fuck your role model, I'm my own idol, and I should win a fucking award for being me," as well as some other odes to the self-assured attitude his grand trine blessed him with. On She, which we've already talked about some, he shows some sentimentality despite the dark theme of the song, saying, "See, when I'm with my friends, I just put on a front, but in the back of my top, I'm writing songs about we. We as including I and yourself making 3 little ones." Analog, also from Goblin, shows us more of Tyler's sentimentality as he asks his love interest on a date to the lake, repeatedly asking her to meet me by the lake, and listing the romantic things they could do together, including eating lots of cookies, counting shooting stars, and watching the sunset. On Awkward from Wolf, Tyler shows us his sentimentality and some reflection at the same time, taking us through Sam's initial experiences upon meeting Salem. He He reflects on how he felt in those first moments. I was 16 when we first laid eyes. It was my first official date. All I remember was your motherfucking face. Can't believe that this dare turned into a reality where our lips locked. This song is also, of course, very genuine. Tyler's mostly fond memories of this time in his life are expressed in this song. He says things like, I got too comfortable, but hey, at least there was time spent. We already discussed IFHY, where Sam reflects on his relationship with and feelings for Salem when he finds out she's seeing Wolf as well. This is another example of both sentimentality and reflection, but we won't go back over those lyrics. Moving back to Cherry Bomb, like we said before, this album focuses much more on hype and confidence than on reflection and emotion, but we do see those grand trine hints of confidence on this album quite a few times. One example of that is Two-Seater, Cherry Bomb's 8th track. It's mostly about Tyler bragging to a girl about his money and social status. There are a lot of braggadocious lyrics on this album, but the most confident lyric to me is Boy, I'm a king and I ain't lying, boy, Hakuna Matata. This is the main line that focuses on Tyler himself and not just his belongings and his wealth. The Brown Stains of Darkis Latifah Part 6 through 12 remix is another braggadocious song wherein Tyler says things like, see, I looked in the mirror and he said, you are the man, and I said, hey man, I agree. With Tyler in a better place than he was in his first 3 albums, he finally sees how talented and impactful he is. We love to see it. On Keep the O's, we see more of Tyler's confidence. He says, see, me, I don't compromise. I know my accomplishments. Fuck all your compliments, bitch. I got confidence. I don't need your approval. Flower Boy is probably the first album where Tyler really embraces all of his grand water trine abilities in one album. He starts off the second track, Where This Flower Blooms, with a reflection back to when he wasn't rich and famous. On the second verse, he shows us some confidence as well, saying, ain't nobody fucking with T, but maybe that's just my ego, and it feels like I'm winning. On Who Dat Boy, we see lots more confidence from Tyler, as well as A$AP Rocky, but he is a topic for another video. The song contains lyrics from Tyler such as standout guy, him don't need no chair, pointing out the tendency for his image and his fame to have him be recognizable. He displays even more self-assuredness with lines such as fresh to death like he got dressed in a coffin, and my mom say she worried because I'm so ill. On Garden Shed, Tyler gets sentimental and reflective as he walks us through his process of finding out and accepting that he is not heterosexual. He says, garden shed for the garden, that is where I was hiding, that was where real love I was in, reflecting emotionally on his time in the closet, or the shed, if you will. And November is a song that is pretty much 100% reflection. He describes November as the best time in his life and explains this simpler time that he refers to as his November. And then members of Odd Future and Tyler's friends go on to describe their November. And we are back to Igor again. Due to its romance-centric theme, this album shows lots of sentimental reflection, but confidence is less of a theme for this album. Earthquake is a very sentimental track where Tyler professes his love for the subject and the pain their inconsistency brings him. He says, you make my earthquake, your love is shaking me up and it's making my heart break. He then emotionally reflects on the reason his partner is inconsistent. Don't leave, it's my fault. More sentimental reflection takes place on Gone Gone / Thank You, where Tyler says, at least I had it instead of never, then says, you kept me going, the Band-Aid is falling off now, followed by, I'm not shocked, I brought this on me, and finally, thank you for the love, thank you for the joy, but I don't ever want to fall in love again. Reflecting on his breakup and how much it hurts. There are some other examples of emotional reflection on Igor, but most of them are very similar to the ones I've already listed, so I won't go over them for the sake of not being repetitive. Now we are on what I believe is one of Tyler, the Creator's most noticeable placements, his Aries Venus. Venus is again the planet of love, and those who have it in Aries tend to be aggressive and direct in their love lives. I'm sure some examples from the past lyrics come to mind here. So to avoid being too repetitive, once again, I will do what I can to not repeat them. Bastard, to begin with, is not an album with very many romantic themes. That's probably for the best, as in this album, Tyler is very obviously not in a great place, probably not in a good place to be having a real romantic relationship. There are a few examples, though. The first is Wheels, which is part 2 of the 2-part song VCR Wheels, where we get a small glimpse of Tyler's romantic side, but in popular Aries fashion, he is very blunt and direct with his expression. He says, "Can I sleep over and wake up next to you? I want to feel you near." So there's really no hinting there what he's trying to get at. It's just very blunt. He just wants to spend, time with the person that he loves. Another example is Sarah, wherein he says things like, "You make a man sing songs nice, you make a man's night turn day." However, this is far from a traditional ballad, and it ends pretty violently, as does most of the tracks on Bastard, so don't go adding it to your wedding playlist. Moving on to Goblin, we've already talked about she pretty extensively. While the song is mainly about stalking, this behavior is linked to Tyler's romantic feelings for the person. And not to say that Aries placements make a stalker, but what more direct a way to express your love than stalking the person and watching them through their bedroom window? Obviously, by the way, disclaimer, I do not condone stalking. That was just a joke. Her is another song that discusses a love interest of Tyler's. He's very blunt with his feelings and quick to anger with regard to her. "We talk every night. She cried to me about her guy, and if we text, I get pissed when I get no reply." Eventually, she and her boyfriend break up, and he says, "Now that he's gone, there's no one that can stop me," planning to swoop right in as soon as possible, wasting no time, and impatience is also a big Aries Venus trait. We've already talked about Analog, where Tyler invites his love interest to the lake and lists lots of plans he has for their night together. He relies on imperative sentence styles, coming off a bit pushy, a common result of having a very direct approach to courtship. This is also something that Aries placements, including Aries Venus, can cause. Now, Wolf has some definite romantic symbolism because of that love triangle between Wolf, Sam, and Salem. We've discussed Awkward some already, where Sam first talks about the process of falling in love with Salem. The lyrics here exhibit a direct and impatient approach to love, but we don't need to repeat them. We've also discussed IFHY pretty extensively, which is partly about his love and is also very bluntly worded. Party Isn't Over / Campfire / Bimmer is another love song from Wolf. He says many very direct things to persuade his love interest to give him a chance, including the party isn't over, we can still dance, but I don't have no rhythm, so fuck it, take a chance with me. On the first part of the song, and see your ignition, baby girl, I'm trying to key up, so let me start it up and smash. In the third part, no hints there, once again, what he's trying to get at. The only song on Cherry Bomb that's really romantic in nature is Fucking Young / Perfect, which is about Tyler falling for someone 6 years younger than him. The overall song is surprisingly blunt, especially considering how much judgment and criticism large age gaps in relationships can get someone. He says direct and hasty things such as, "Day that I met you, girl, I knew that it was something special." That's, if you watch the Halsey video, you know that sometimes I have a hard time reading lyrics without singing them. That's a huge example of this once again. He also says, "A 6-year difference is a 10-year sentence." And of course, "Girl, you're perfect, but you're too fucking young." So lots of very blunt wording there. Flower Boy also shows some very direct takes on romance, including Glitter, where Tyler describes the extent of his romantic feelings, including threatening suicide if his lover leaves, and Garden Shed, where he essentially comes out of the closet and shares that he has been in real love with a man. In addition to these two songs we've already talked about, See You Again contains some very romantically direct lyrics as well, including 2020 Vision, Cupid Hit Me with Precision, I Wonder If You Look Both Ways When You Cross My Mind, and My Infatuation is translating to another form of what you call it, love. On the 911 portion of 911/Mr. Lonely, Tyler describes how much he yearns for a romantic partner, saying, My thirst levels are infinity and beyond, I need a Beyonce. Completing our look at Tyler's romanticism in Flower Boy. All of Igor is about romanticism and is very candid and direct. We've discussed lyrics that fit that Aries Venus direct and blunt in love theme pretty extensively already in songs like I Think, Puppet, Earthquake, and Gone Gone Thank You. As far as that album goes, you probably catch my drift. He was very direct about his feelings throughout the entire album. And that's where we're going to call it today. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave me a comment telling me what you think, what you like, what you dislike, your favorite Tyler, the Creator album, and who you want to learn about next. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And until next time, have a great rest of your day.